The Pacific Northwest has always carried a certain mystery, a place where towering evergreens block out the sky and fog rolls through the valleys like something alive. It's the kind of landscape that makes you feel small, watched, and strangely alert. That's exactly why I chose it for a solo gold prospecting trip. I came looking for color in the pan, the quiet thrill of finding gold hidden in ancient streams. What I didn't expect was that this trip would turn into a fight to get out safely. I hiked deep into a remote stretch of forest, far from cell service and well away from marked trails. The creek I found looked perfect, clear, fast-moving water cutting through gravel bars that hadn't been disturbed in years. I set up camp nearby, the constant sound of water crashing over rocks filling the air. At first, everything felt peaceful. The forest was alive with birds, and the smell of wet earth and pine needles was calming. I spent hours panning, pulling up black sand, quartz, and the occasional tiny flake of gold. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to keep my spirits high. As evening came, the forest began to change. The birds went silent, and the wind died down completely. It was the kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's pressing in on you from all sides. I noticed it, but I brushed it off as just another part of being deep in the wilderness. I cooked a simple meal, kept the fire small, and settled in for the night. That's when I heard the first sound. It wasn't an animal call I recognized. It was deep, long, and echoed through the trees in a way that made my chest tighten. At first, I thought it might be an elk or something similar, but it didn't quite match anything I'd heard before. A few minutes later, there was another call, closer this time. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving somewhere beyond the tree line. I grabbed my headlamp and scanned the forest, but the beam only seemed to disappear into the darkness. That's when I noticed a foul, musky smell drifting through the camp. It was strong and sudden, like wet fur mixed with rot. Every instinct in my body told me something wasn't right. I remembered all the stories people laugh about, Bigfoot sightings, strange encounters in the Pacific Northwest. I'd never believed them, not until that moment. A large shadow moved between the trees, just for a second, but long enough for me to see its outline. It was tall, far taller than any human, and moved with a strange, powerful stride. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I stayed perfectly still, barely breathing, hoping whatever it was would move on. Instead, I heard a rock hit the ground not far from my camp, followed by another deep, guttural sound. That was when I realized I needed to leave. Forget the gold, forget the gear, survival was the only thing that mattered. I quickly packed the essentials, keeping my movements as quiet as possible. Every snap of a twig sounded like a gunshot in the silence. As I started moving away from camp, I could hear footsteps pacing me, always just out of sight. Branches snapped, and something let out a short, sharp grunt that sent a chill straight through me. The hike out felt endless. The trail was barely visible in the dark, and my headlamp seemed useless against the vast forest. Several times, I thought I saw movement in my peripheral vision, always on the edges of the light. At one point, a loud crash echoed behind me, followed by the sound of something large moving fast. Panic set in, and I broke into a run, not caring how much noise I made anymore. Eventually, the sounds stopped. The forest slowly returned to normal, with insects buzzing and the wind whispering through the trees. I didn't stop until I reached my vehicle, my hands shaking as I threw my pack inside and slammed the door shut. Only then did I allow myself to breathe. I sat there for a long time, staring into the dark forest, half expecting something to step out into the headlights. I drove away as fast as the rough road would allow, not stopping until the sun began to rise. In the daylight, everything seemed unreal, like a nightmare that fades when you wake up. But the fear I felt was real. The sounds, the smell, the feeling of being watched, it all stayed with me. People will say it was just an animal, that fear and darkness can make your mind play tricks on you. Maybe they're right, but I know what I experienced out there. The Pacific Northwest is vast and largely unexplored, and there are places where humans are not at the top of the food chain. I went in looking for gold, but I came out with something far more valuable, a deep respect for the wilderness and a reminder that some legends exist for a reason.